Welcome back, everybody. It's the Dominator. It is Sunday. I am your host, Billy Muzio. With me today, one of my favorite people in the industry, Andrew Cooper, a.k.a. Coop Fiasco, here from Fantasy Alarm. He's the lead analyst over there. He's also a 2021 FSWA Football Writer of the Year finalist. He is featured on SiriusXM Radio and a host on Better Network. Coop, you also have a nickname, the Tight End Whisperer. How you doing today, buddy? And how did you get the nickname?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, finalist for a lot of those awards, though. I'm pretty sure JJ Zacharyason's won every single award I've been nominated for. Congrats to the GOAT. One of these days, I'm gonna get him though. The tight end whisperer stuff, man. Like I never called myself that, and it's funny that when I first started with Fantasy Alarm, they were kind of like doling out who's gonna do what, and Howard Bender has always been the tight end whisperer to me, and they said I was gonna do running backs. So I'm like all set up, but I was working on this like side project. So I email this spreadsheet of all these tight end stats to John and Pemba. And I said, give this to Howard. And he emailed me back and he goes, Howard says you're doing tight ends now. So then I just based on the research I'd done, he was like, you're doing them now. You take that over. And then eventually Howard was like, this guy's the new tight end whisperer. So that's how that came around. Again, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of corny at times, but I work hard doing it, right?
That's awesome. So I can't have the tight end whisperer on the podcast and not talk tight ends. There's a lot of things we want to talk about. We want to talk about the FSGA draft that happened a few weeks ago that you were hosting there for Better Fantasy or Better Sports Network, excuse me. And then you were pretty shocked at some of the picks that were come up, and that we'll get into that in a little bit. But we're going to talk about the draft. We're going to talk about tight ends. We're going to talk about our time bowling, and then we're going to jump into our night at the poker table at like 2 a.m. in Cleveland. And so there's a few things we got to jump to. Some of it's fantasy relevant, some of it is not. So if you don't want to stick around for the non-fantasy stuff, go ahead and exit out after the FSGA draft. But you're going to want to probably hear some of these stories because we had a really good time in Cleveland.
Oh yeah, absolute blast, dude, and we'll let it speak for itself when we get there.
All right, let's start off a little bit of tight end talk.
Yes,
we want to talk about a few different scenarios here at tight end. One is, what is your general strategy when it comes to tight end? Do you typically like to take one early? Do you typically like to take one late? Do you like to mix and match? What is the tight end whisperer's tight end strategy inside drafts?
Yeah, so anyone that is really looking for the information, if you want the full, because I mean, you can't get into all of it in an hour show, whatever, go to my profile at Coupe Fiasco on Twitter. The linked tweet is everything I know about tight ends, right? My strategy personally is not to draft one early unless it's 2 tight end or tight end premium, because I'm contractually obligated to find breakout tight ends, right? Like that's our job. Now, the good news is that over the last 6 years, there's been a tight end that comes from outside the top 17 to finish top 5 in ADP every season, right? We're talking Darren Waller, Mark Andrews, Logan Thomas, 1 year Eric Ebron, 13 touchdowns with Andrew Luck, Evan Engram twice last year and as a rookie. So they're out there and it's our job to find them, right? So I have a little strategy I called yin and yang tight end. I do an article on it every year where I wait on tight end. I take a very safe player, and then I take the highest risk, highest reward player. I don't care about floor. And if the guy hits early, great. If not, we rotate him out, right? Like Logan Thomas, for instance, through 6 weeks, he was tight end 26. He finished as tight end 3. So we're always keeping our eye on the underlying metrics, trying to find those guys. That's the move, man. So we're looking for, we want guys that are top on their team in targets or at least second, right? Speed is huge because it contributes to ADOT. It contributes to YAC. Right, we're looking for the combination of these things to come together, and sometimes it takes an injury. Sometimes these guys just emerge, or sometimes Antonio Brown brings a fake helmet to practice and calls the GM a cracker, and then Darren Waller is the guy, right? Like that's what we're looking for. So that's the game, man. But yeah, I usually wait. Because every week I'm writing about it, researching about it. So it would be a misuse of resources to take a tight end early, and that goes for anybody. If you think you can find wide receivers late, don't draft wide receivers early. You lean into your skills, right, Billy?
Oh, absolutely. So give me a name. You mentioned that you like one upside play that has the athleticism, the speed, that could potentially be a difference maker. That could be the 1 or the 2 in that offense. Give me a name.
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple quick, because one honestly, it's getting too popular, and honestly, I'm partially to blame. Chig Okonkwo, right? So that's a guy where we look at it, his yards per route run. So like last year, his rookie year was very similar to Mark Andrews, right? They both played like a 35% snap share. They both got like 30 or so receptions, and the yards per route run was high. Chig's was even higher than Andrews' rookie year, right? So a lot of times you look at the machine, and if you can find a guy like that, he also ran a 4.5 240, which is the same as George Kittle. And George Kittle is the guy that breaks off all these monster plays. Chig Okonkwo was the only tight end in the league last year with 3 40-plus yard plays, and he only had a 35% snap share. So we're just hoping more snaps equates to more production, right? And he was third in snaps last year behind Jeff Swaim and Austin Hooper. Those guys are gone, baby. Gone. So it's time. If you want, though, like that one's becoming a little too, like, I'm like such a tight end hit. I'm a hipster, Billy. I really am a hipster. It's almost like now my favorite band is on the radio, and I'm just like, all right, we got to go. I can't handle it, right? So Chig, we obviously love him, but now he's going in the top 12. So is he a sleeper anymore, Billy? What do you think?
No, like if you were drafting in February and March, like we were, I mean, he was going late, round 14, 15. The hype steamed up. I was really in on Chig back then as well. As he's been climbing, I've been kind of shifting to other players because FFPC now, he goes in round 8 now, round 7 at times.
Right.
And that to me now, that's not a sleeper. That's going maybe a round or 2 behind Freiermuth at the latest, right? He's going ahead of Dalton Schultz now in these drafts. He's going ahead of Tyler Higbee, who I really like this year, actually. And that's the player who I was going to mention. I'll get to him in a second.
Yeah,
but I like Chigo. I like Chigo a lot. And when you talked about being the number 1 or 2 option on their team, in my opinion, he's the clear cut number 2. Like in my projections, we have Treylon Burks, easy number 1 in this offense. It's debatable if they even have another NFL wide receiver on this team. Nick Westbrook-Akeen doesn't do a lot for me. Kyle Phillips, although I liked the talent in camp last year, we got hurt and didn't get to see the field that much. Chris Conklin, ew, gross. Chris Moore, gross, ew. Right. So Chigo has a real opportunity to be the number 2 in this offense. I have him projected for 83.5 targets. So we'll just round up and call it 84. I have him projected for 715 yards and little under 5 scores. He's my tight end number 11 inside of the projections. And he has been as high as 10. Higbee just recently moved back ahead of him in my projections, and I'm just going to naturally move into Higbee now. Love Higbee just because this offense is also kind of deprived of weapons. We know they have Cooper Kupp there as the number 1. Tutu Atwell might make an appearance this year as the number 2 in the receiving game, maybe Van Jefferson. But we look at what Tyler Higbee did down the stretch and the game logs. I mean, we saw an 11-target game there in Week 16 versus Denver, 7-target games, 8-target games. The beginning of the season, even when he had Cooper Kupp on the field, is actually when he did the best. 11 targets in Week 1, 9 targets in Week 2, 14 targets in Week 4, and gotta like the amount of routes that he's running. We're constantly seeing 80 to 90% routes when he's on the field. And so I think that he's kind of sneaky this year. He has the ability to be the number 2 option inside of this Rams passing game. We're expecting them to be worse than they were last year on a defense standpoint, which is good for fantasy because they're going to be playing from behind. Might have to throw the ball a little bit more. We love those garbage time touchdowns, whether it's wide receiver or tight end or quarterback. I will take it, and I'm glad to see Tyler Higbee kind of go late in drafts this year.
Yeah, man. And that's the thing is that with, early on with tight end, we ask ourselves why. Like, why am I paying for Travis Kelce? Why am I paying for Mark Andrews? Right. And you have to justify it a lot of different ways because you're spending the capital. Later on, we start asking why not? Right. Like, why can't Tyler Higbee be a top 2 target on the team? Why can't, so like you have to use your imagination. I do like Tyler Higbee is the exact kind of guy where, especially in full PPR, you can trust him. He could have a Zach Ertz type season, but the one thing he's missing, Billy, and you'll agree, is he doesn't really have the juice, right? Like, he's not going to break a lot of tackles. He's not going to rip off big plays, but there's no argument to be made against 8, 9, 10 targets, right? So like if we're going with the philosophy, we have to be in if they trade away Allen Robinson, if they have nothing else after. And, we saw it last year. The thing with him last year is he was a tight end 6, but he was arguably the most unstartable tight end 6 I've ever seen week to week, right? Like in best ball, he was amazing, right? And if you survived through best ball, at the end of the year, he had that like 30-point game, right? So like he took you to the level where you were making money, but he also had games where he had the 80-90% snap and route share where he dropped 0 spots, right? So it's so difficult to come back from that. And that's where understanding the underlying metrics and all the information regarding routes and everything, that's what gives you the confidence to actually continue starting a guy like that and collect on that. But yeah, Tyler Higbee, for me, at tight end 16 right now, I'm actually in. For the first time ever, I'm in on Tyler Higbee.
Hey, let's go.
We're in, man. We're in. And that's the thing is like, that's kind of the exercise that you have to do in these later rounds, especially in like underdog. We were drafting 2 to 3 tight ends in every league. Like say to yourself, okay, like create a scenario, use your imagination. Who could be a top 2 target, right? Like let's go through some of these guys. Irv Smith, for instance, how many injuries does he need to be a top 2 target to give you that upside to win Best Ball Mania? I can't see it. You know, like if T Higgins gets hurt, I mean, Jamar Chase got hurt last year and Hayden Hurst didn't really do a whole lot. So like Irv Smith is a guy that some people, you know, their analysis is, oh, Joe Burrow's good. And then they take him. But for me, I can't do it. But Billy, when you look around after we get past this top group, you know, obviously Waller could be one, Dalton Schultz could be one. Is there anybody like when you look using your imagination, who could be a top 2 target on their team?
Top 2 target on their team inside the tight end, inside the top 10, or just in general.
Outside, like so. Once we get outside that group, so once you get outside of, we look at Schultz, we look at Waller is possible,
yep,
Higbee, as you said,
I'm going to go to.
Yeah, outside of that, I mean, now is where you have to create. You have to do a little digging, right?
There's some sneaky ones. I mean, you technically could have Trey McBride as the number 2 option inside the passing game, because we know Rondale Moore isn't the most healthy guy ever in the league, although I love Rondale Moore. Marquise Brown is not the most healthy guy in the league. Zach Ertz is coming off a ACL tear. I mean, McBride has an option. He technically, I mean, if you try to look at all the scenarios of like what's possible, there is a world in which Trey McBride could be the number 2 target inside of Arizona.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what we have to ask. Because, I mean, like, that's how we found Dalton Schultz was tight end 35, right? Because it was like when his breakout year in the argument, because it was like him versus Blake Jarwin, right? And then, like, when he won that and Dak liked him, he moved up. Logan Thomas, same thing. So why can't Trey McBride be that guy? I'll give you another one. I look at New England, right? And
I was going to say, please say Gesicki.
I personally think that Juju will be the top target, but why not Gesicki, right? Like, why can't he be the next guy? And Alex Barth, a beat writer from Boston, he pulled up the transcripts and went back through all the times that people went to Bill Belichick and said, hey, what do you think about the tight end in Miami? And Bill Belichick, on 9 different occasions, corrected them and said, well, he's actually more of a big wide receiver, right? And then Mike Gesicki complains about his usage, you know, live on mic to Dawson Knox. We know that he didn't like his usage there. As a free agent, he could have gone anywhere. He decides to go to the Patriots, right? Where you look around and who is the next guy? So I could see a world where Mike Gesicki ends up being that guy. And I know what Belichick's doing, right? Because he is always the guy who looks at what the other team does best. And he says, all right, we're going to stay away from that. Or we're going to marginalize that. You look at guys like Sauce Gardner, Trey White. Sauce Gardner only played 9 snaps in the slot all last year. Fully outside wide receiver. So what does Belichick do? He goes, gets Juju and Mike Gesicki and says, come on in the slot. I dare you. Otherwise, what are they going to do? Juju, Sauce is going to cover Devontae Parker the whole game. What a waste. I'm interested to see if they pivot off that. But yeah, I mean, it's situations like that. Like, you know, it might not come to fruition, but we're talking about tight end 24. So who cares?
So you heard it here first. Andrew Cooper saying that Gesicki has the option to be a top 2 option in the passing game in New England. I have one thing to say to that.
Amen to that shit.
That's right.
Drop it, baby. Let's go, dude. Let's go. Amen on that. Yeah, I love that.
Let's move over to FSGA Draft. Let's pull up the draft board. But before we do so, let's get a quick word from our sponsor.
Hey, you know, people always ask me, what's the World Series of Fantasy? What's the Super Bowl of Fantasy? And it's easy. It's the FFPC. Their signature Players Championship has a $6 million prize pool, and their best ball leagues start in February. and they're the answer to so many questions. Hey, what's the best place to get a Dynasty Orphan? Well, you can adopt a Dynasty Orphan at the FFPC right now. There's more orphans at the FFPC than anywhere else on the internet. That's why we partner with them. So if you want to play fantasy football for low, medium, high stakes, you love Dynasty, you love best ball, you love seasonal leagues, all types of fantasy footballers need to go to the FFPC. And remember, use promo code Underworld. Promo code Underworld gets you $25 off your first team. Promo code Underworld, $25 off your first team, no matter what the format is, at the FFPC. Go get it.
Go get it. FFPC, promo code Underworld. I've been drafting a ton over there. I'm probably already in the main tournament, the best ball tournament now. I'm probably about 55 teams in already, and I have done a wide range of tight end builds over there, Coop. I've done early tight end builds, double tapping Andrews and Hawkinson. I've done some really late tight end builds where somebody like McBride is my one, stack 4 there at the end with like Kate Otten, Logan Thomas, and just kind of shoot for the moon on a lot of players that might have a role. And then I've done, of course, the regular double tap in the middle where I take like Higbee and Dulcich. And so got to like the FFPC format, especially with that tight end premium. You probably do well in that.
Oh, I love that, man. And I just honestly, I treat it like hero, the way people do like hero or anchor RB. So I'll take the guy I like best early, usually a guy like Waller or somebody like that, and then I scrap, right? But like you look at a guy like Gary Haddow who won Scott Fishbowl 2019, which is tight end premium, similar thing. He waited on tight end, drafted 4 in a row, happened to hit on Darren Waller. So, killer. And I just want to say real quick, dude, shout out to your chat, man. Harry Snowman, Ball is Life, FF, dude. Some sharp cats in here. And I'm loving Laporte. I actually tweeted about him earlier today. That's another one where, at least early on, especially with Jameson Williams suspended, why can't Laporte sneak in there and get a ton of targets, right? Dalton Kincaid, right? Guys like that. Shoot for the moon.
While we're in the chat, what about Conklin for you? I know we're supposed to talk FSGA, but let's just keep talking tight ends for a minute. Is Conklin a target for you at all with Aaron Rodgers?
So the thing about Conklin is that he's, for me, more of a best ball play because he is inelusive, if that's a word. Like he does not break tackles, man. He's not particularly quick. He doesn't create for himself, doesn't get a lot of contested catches, but he will score touchdowns in that offense. One thing I will say for Conklin is I did this little exercise I like doing, which is a 2-minute drill exercise. I pulled up every player that got receptions with 3 minutes left in the second quarter, fourth quarter, and overtime, either tied or down by less than 16 points or less, right? So trying to figure out, okay, teams are still in it technically, back against the wall, right? Number 1, the guy that got the most targets of any player was Pat Freiermuth. Any player, wide receivers, anyone. Number 2 was Tyler Conklin.
Wow.
So yeah, in those situations, they were leaning on Conklin a bit. Again, different quarterback, different coordinator, so who knows? But Aaron Rodgers, man, he could throw a touchdown past to one of you or me, right? Like if you pushed a shopping cart down towards the end zone, he would find a way to get some touchdowns to that guy. I mean, Robert Tonyan scored 11, right? So Conklin in best ball, I'm in. Standard, maybe, where touchdowns are king, maybe. But I believe in Alan Lazard. I believe in Garrett Wilson. So I can't put him on the target pedestal yet. So that's where I'm at with Conklin. Best ball only for me, which is the biggest cop out ever to say best ball only. But I will. I can say best ball only if I give 2 full minutes of solid reasoning first, right, Billy?
That's right. Yes. Yeah. It's like all the statistics, best ball only. That's it. I'm done.
Yeah. But it's just saying maybe in best ball without any analysis though is the biggest like fantasy football crutch of all time. So I would never do that. I'll lay out why first, and then I will say best ball only.
Well, this draft we did. This is the FSGA draft that I was in. You were hosting on Better Network, and so I want to real quick talk about the draft. What were your instant reactions? So I know you weren't able to speak your mind freely on air, but there was a what the fuck moment in this draft that happened in round 1 and then again in round 1. What were you thinking when you saw Josh Allen go off the board in round 1? And then what did you think about Jacobs going in round 1 in this draft?
Yeah, man. I mean, I I do my best to speak my mind, but I don't want to hurt feelings. What's funny is that you and me are friends, so I was rooting against you, so I could be mean to you. Like I even said that on air. I was like, I'm kind of pissed that Billy's draft is going well because it's funny. It is funnier, right? Yeah. Like it is funnier that way. But yeah, so with the Josh Allen pick, here's my problem with that is you have to ask yourself why. And I have no problem with reaching to get your guys, but you have to do it within the scope of ADP, right? The moment you make that pick well above a round of where you need to, that's where you've made the mistake, right? So an argument could be made that maybe this guy thought that quarterbacks were going to go heavy and that he wasn't going to get Josh Allen on the way back. But there's anyone paying attention to ADP and early drafts and the experts in this league, right? Like your rank, I can find your rankings, Billy. Like I see your little face next to your players on the player profiler website. Like you're right, there's a little picture of you on there, right? Like
there was
I know
actually somebody drafting at that site with my rankings. Did you know that?
Oh, really? Was he?
Somebody was actually drafting with my rankings.
That's what I'm saying. Like I know who you like. Like that's what's crazy about this is that like, and my buddies at home know who I like. I'm just better at this. Like and my stuff's all fluid. Like just my rankings isn't going to help you beat me. But like, so for him to do that, I just think he went too far. And same goes for, Brian Henderson, who admitted that he doesn't do a ton of drafts, right? So he took the 49ers defense very early, and he also took the first kicker. So those teams for me, like I immediately have to rule those out as ones that I would consider the best in this draft. I would obviously never put them on blast on live on air. And I'm not really putting them on blast here because you could easily win your league if you're right? Like I live in Boston and one of my buddies 1 year drafted Brady and Randy Moss, and Brady threw 50 touchdown passes and Randy Moss caught 23. And during the draft, we all called him a homer. And then later we were like, you're such a jerk. Like what a way to win a league, dude. He has 73 touchdowns from the local team. Unbelievable.
There was the year, and I was on with Howard on the Fantasy Alarm Show on SiriusXM Radio last week, and we did a segment called "Am I Trippin'?" And one of my examples when we talk about home leagues, we talk about people who make some asinine picks, but it just works out sometimes. There was a guy in one of my home leagues. His name was Wilby, and this was the year, if you remember, Julius Thomas kind of burst onto the scene with like 12 or 13 touchdowns.
2013.
Yeah, and so this is Titan Premium Home League. He takes Gronkowski and Julius Thomas 1 and 2 on the turn, which was just asinine at the time. But the two combined for I figured 2,400 yards and 24 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think Gronk had 8. Wait, was that the other Gronk had 18 touchdowns? Or was that
I think he had
year?
another 12 or 13 that year.
12 or 13 that year. Yeah,
it was 24,
crazy.
25 combined touchdowns with two. And he ended up winning the league out of it because it was just that was the big Peyton Manning year, right?
So that's the thing about that Peyton Manning year and why I always preach top 2 target on the team, right? Because you can get there as the third target, but a lot of times you'll be inconsistent week to week. But that was the last time a team had 2 top 24 wide receivers and a top 5 tight end. And Peyton Manning threw 55 touchdown passes. 55. That's a record that stands now. And
hashtag good.
Hashtag pretty good, dude. So that's the problem you run into is like, if I sit here and I say, I like Jamar Chase and I like T. Higgins, that immediately tells me that tight end is at best a handcuff if one of the guys gets hurt. Right. It's a very difficult situation to have all 3 guys be the guys. And it's why I'm not honestly drafting a lot of Dallas Goedert. It's why I'm not drafting a lot of George Kittle. Like Dallas Goedert last year, when everyone was healthy, you had AJ Brown getting 8 targets a game. You had Devonta Smith getting 7.7 and Goddard was getting 5.6. I mean, he can be safe, but boring, right? Yeah. It's cruising into third place in my opinion. So I'm not doing it, dude. I'm not doing it.
Well, you talked about hashtag good. Let's look at this draft board and let's talk about the teams that we think are hashtag good.
Well, let's talk about yours first, Billy, because I know you want to do that. So let's just get that out of the way. Can we get that out of the way? I do love your team. It's super annoying that you were able to get a lot of these players. I said this during the broadcast that it's full PPR. So the guy next to you, Drew, who is a great player, he took Derrick Henry and Dameon Pierce, who in my opinion, not amazing full PPR players. You got Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jahmyr Gibbs, your first 3 picks, how many targets is that, dude? Like if those guys are like that, we're talking like that's like 500 targets between those 3 guys.
I have Cooper Kupp. Let me pull the projections up real quick. So Cooper Kupp, let's go over to the NFC West. Cooper Kupp, I have projected for 158 targets. And then if we go over to the NFC North, so 158, I'm going to pull up a calculator too and do this at the same time. So 158 plus, I got Amon-Ra St. Brown in here. It was a good thing we're on the same team here. So we can just look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I projected for 165 targets because he's the only option right now. It's 165. That's 323 targets. And then I have Jahmyr Gibbs for 50 targets.
And he could easily do more. Yeah, he could do more.
That's a pretty conservative number. That's 373 targets.
I think if they, as because they have David Montgomery as their first round pick that they traded up to get, if he only gets 50 targets, I think that as a Lions fan, I would be disappointed. If I'm not a Lions fan, but if I was a Lions fan and my team used a first round pick on a guy that only got 50 targets, that when you have another early down bruiser back, I think I would be disappointed with the pick. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs, the upside's a lot higher than 50.
Yeah, I'm pretty conservative when it comes to rookie running backs and just my projections in general. I do have him projected for 175 carries. He just comes out as running back, I think 18 inside my projections, which is a little bit lower than most sites. I just think that there is a real scenario in which David Montgomery is still pretty involved in the passing game. When I say pretty involved, we're talking like, 5.5% target share, like 28, 32 targets, which is just enough to kind of leech enough from Jahmyr Gibbs to be,
but I'll put it this
12, 13 running back.
I'll put it this way though, man. Like think of, and like, I'm not even that huge on Gibbs, but think of rookie year Alvin Kamara, where Mark Ingram was RB8. He had 1,500 yards. He was targeted fairly regularly. He was a great pass catcher at the time. He scored 12 touchdowns, right? But Alvin Kamara got 100 targets and scored 13 touchdowns. He was RB3. Like Christian McCaffrey wasn't the full-time back as a rookie, but he got 115 targets, something like that.
80 receptions that year.
80 receptions, right? So like Gibbs has that upside, man. So I love what you did. And here's the other part, and I mentioned this on the draft that a lot of people don't think about. Like this is like another level of strategy and why I hate linear rankings. I hate linear rankings because what you did is you went for Kupp and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Kupp obviously super mega star. Amon-Ra St. Brown still a low A dot guy, 7-yard A dot, but you loaded up on very safe players that are going to be in your lineup every week. And then once you had those guys, you started taking upside stabs.
Correct.
Right. So like you look around and a team that takes, if you take Javonte Williams, you can't also take like DeAndre Hopkins and Dalvin Cook. You're loading up too much risk. You got so much safety early on that you opened up the door to take the risk, which I love. I love that about this draft for you. So kudos, dude. Awesome, man. Like,
well, outside my team,
boring content to pat you on the back, dude. But I like, you know what I mean? It is boring. That's why it's much better if I could be like, dude, I hated this pick. Let me see. What did I not like? I mean, you could have done better at tight end, honestly.
I really like Higbee this year. We talked about him earlier. Dulcich for me is that upside shot that you talked about. Now, right. I don't think that he is very likely to be number 1 or 2 in the offense, but I could see him being a downfield threat for this offense, right. and picking up chunk yards, kind of like a George Kittle yard after the catch guy, and getting out there down the field and getting some big catches. That's what I look at Dulcich as. And then if this offense clicks, like I think they're going to click, because I'm pretty high on Denver just in general, I think that we could see a pretty surprising offense out of 3 weapons inside of this offense. And
I'll tell you right now with this team, when you look at what Sean Payton's been doing, there was the early trade rumors, right, with the wide receivers.
Yep.
Then he goes out and he not only brings in Adam Trotman and Chris Manhertz, which are full on blocking tight ends at this stage, but he brought in Michael Burton, which Michael Burton for him with the Saints, he played 25 to 35% of the snaps a lot of times as a fullback. Every time you bring that fullback in the game, you're taking a wide receiver out. Every time you bring that blocking tight end in the game, you're taking a wide receiver out. So with what he's building, I honestly would not be shocked to see them deal one of the wide receivers. I really wouldn't, man. And when you look at Sean Payton and his attitude with like who's buying in, who's not, he's exactly the kind of coach. I mean, he cut McManus, right? Like if you're not buying in, you're gone, right? Like
Okay,
Bill
Bill
Belichick will do that too. So like
let's take this scenario and run with it. Okay, so let's just say they move on from either Judy or Sutton. How far does Dulcich move, and what is his
10 and 8? I'd move him immediately to 10 and 8, and I would move him immediately to 10 and 8, which is where I have. I would move him ahead of Chig Okonkwo. I think I would because I just trust Russell Wilson more. And Dulcich, I think they're going to throw more, and I just trust because Sean Payton used the word Joker, and people when they hear Joker, they think Alvin Kamara, right? But what
Batman.
do you? Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Billy. For God damn it!
Gotta keep it real.
I think about getting kicked out of the table at Cleveland, the Jack Casino at 2 a.m. on Tuesday.
Ooh, that's a little tease.
A little tease for later. But dude, no, like, so what he calls? Now, will you please be serious with me for a second? He calls Alvin Kamara the Joker, right?
Why so serious?
Dude, you said that was half Heath Ledger, half Yoda at the.
I swear I'm sober, people. I'm sober.
Oh man, that is fun. Begun the tight end wars have. So anyway, bro. Dude, anyway, bro. Anyway, so the Joker idea is that it creates mismatches. He used to call Jimmy Graham the Joker too, because he was a Joker because it's a player you play out of position. He would play him at wide receiver. I truly believe that. So like when I say 8, you have Kelsey ahead, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, and then Pitts is 4. 5 and 6 have to be Goddard and Kittle, right? Like in there somewhere. Yeah. And then I also have Darren Waller ahead because he could lead that team in targets, and I've seen him do it. So I have to have him ahead. Like those names I have to have ahead. I wouldn't be scared to put Dulcich right there at 8, right? Like, and would you put him ahead of any of those guys I named? I mean, it's kind of tough with that crew. That's just
it's tough with that crew. I mean, I think the other name, I don't know if you mentioned it or not, was Freiermuth, right?
Now I'm out. Dude, here's the problem I have, man, is that again, we play this game of like, okay, do we think the quarterback is prolific? Can this be an offense like the 2019 Falcons that throws 50 more passes than every other team, and you have Ridley and Julio and Austin Hooper? I don't think so, man. Kenny Pickett threw 7 touchdown passes. Okay, so if you can't put this team in the top 5 for pass attempts, then now you have to play the next game, which is who is being overdrafted. Is it Deontay Johnson?
I have him at 7th in pass attempts.
Okay, well, that's not too bad. I mean, well, you must be drafting Kenny Pickett in a lot of leagues.
I do have some Kenny Pickett.
I do too. Well, just because like you look at ADP, so like pick 70 off the board, Deontay Johnson and George Pickens are going there, and Muth is going at 100.
So if those stack them really cheap,
yeah, they're cheap, but they're also being drafted in every single league. And like, so if all 3 of those guys are being drafted, then the quarterback. We ran into this last year with Tua. It was like if we love all the weapons, something has to give. If the weapons are going to suck or the quarterback's going to be good, so maybe Pickett does take a step forward, but you have to fade somebody if you like Muth. Like George Pickens is probably the low-hanging fruit, but it's tough.
I've been fading George Pickens, not because of the player. I think the player is great. For me, It just breaks down to the pecking order, right? He might be number 3 in the pecking order. And then on top of it, we talked about the uncertainties at the quarterback position there. I mean, it's a real thing, even though I think they're going to take a step forward, it still is an uncertainty. But the biggest thing for me, and I've talked about this on several pods, so I won't go too much into it, is the amount that they've bolstered the offensive line. They got Broderick Jones in round 1. They got Darnell Washington in round 3, who's a blocking tight end. They got another tight end in the late in drafts, or not tight end, sorry, another offensive line late in the draft. So this line should be better. That should help them run. That should help them throw. And in general, I think that we're going to see a improved Pickett. And so we know that Tomlin will continue to throw the ball. I mean, Deontay Johnson has yet to go under 144 targets in his career. Even last year, with the ups and downs and the quarterback uncertainty there, he still had 147 targets.
He's locked in. There's no chance he scores 0 touchdowns again. I would bet my bottom dollar. I bet your bottom dollar. I love your chat, dude. Toronto Dave and Joe Carlton both connecting the dots. That Russell Wilson in the same spot. We can't love the weapons without boosting the quarterback a little bit. So yeah, and I will say I did mention earlier, but Pat Freiermuth in those 2-minute drill situations led every player, 24 targets in those situations. And also, because my followers are annoying, they were like, well, maybe that team had more targets than any other team in those situations. I did it by percentage too, painstakingly by hand on my computer, and painstakingly by hand with a couple extra clicks of my mouse. And Freiermuth actually led all players in percentage too. So everyone is going to have to eat it because I did the math. Because my followers are too smart. I wish I had dumb followers, dude. That would be so much easier, right?
Numbers talk, percentages walk. So he did the percentages.
We did it all, dude. We did it all. Yeah.
All right. Let's get back to this draft board. So outside my team, who's obviously the best, who is number 2? Who's number 2 in this league?
Well, that's the worst, dude. So I will say one last thing on your team. Why didn't you draft Stafford, man? Like you already pot committed.
Because I was stacking
ARSB and Goff and and Gibbs. Yeah. I mean, he could have taken 2 quarterbacks.
And so I mean, Detroit, I like Detroit's shootout schedule too. I mean, so it also goes with Denver here. So week 15, they get Denver. So I got little Dulcich in there.
Cowboys 17, right?
And then they get Dallas week 17. So
that's what I said.
Yeah. Oh, you did say Cowboys.
I said Cowboys. Yeah. Don't correct me on something I was right on, Billy. Are you kidding me?
You're absolutely correct. Yeah. So I did not get to stack, Cowboys in this offense, but the Denver getting Dulcich there. I mean, I'm just not sold on Stafford this year. I think he's being underdrafted, but I like Jared Goff.
Have you seen him throw a football yet? I haven't seen a clip. I need to see one video of him throwing a football, and I'll start drafting him.
He'll be fine.
All right. I will say we got to talk about Matt Deutsch's team, right? Because it's like. I love, dude, the first 5 picks, I was like, man, he's crushing, dude. Like, he's killing, right? McCaffrey, Breece Hall, T. Higgins, Treylon Burks, Justin Fields. Love those picks, man. What do you think about the back-to-back Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine? Especially, he already took Breece Hall, which just kind of, it seems, I mean, like, man, we're talking about fragility at this position. This is the most fragile build you could possibly make.
Yeah, it's very fragile. It's one of those it's one of those rosters though where if he can get enough out of his RB2 down the stretch, Breece Hall and Javonte, if healthy, could be difference makers on this roster. Now, I am out on Javonte this year. I don't think that
he's
going to be ready to play. I think he's going to be limited, and I don't think he's going to be majority of the season. That being said, Breece Hall is ahead of schedule, and I think that the lateral agility is the only thing we had to look kind of have worry with in the first few weeks. But down the stretch, Breece Hall could arguably be the RB1 down the road. So having Christian McCaffrey pairing with Breece Hall, I like, but it is a little just too much injury risk for me. I would have liked to have probably seen some more, dart throws at running back position later, having maybe throw a Pierre Strong out there, a Chase Brown, a Jeff Wilson, a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerome Ford. He could have just painted it green towards the end, and just in case one of those guys is,
right,
the RB2 or actually steps forward and does something in fantasy, then it's less risky, and then he can flex them. And then so I would have liked to have seen that probably instead of the Claypool and Parker picks. But I think other than that, I like a lot of the players he picked. I think they have a lot of upside, and if it all hits, it's going to be dangerous.
I think every player on his team missed time last year except for McCaffrey, which is the one everyone said was going to and didn't. So I mean, it is dicey. It's dicey, but we'll see. I did like, again, there's a couple teams I had to rule out immediately just because of picks. Like,
roster construction.
Yeah, it's roster construction, and just certain picks where it's like, once you take the 49ers defense in the 8th round, I couldn't possibly pick your team to be the best one, even though I love Miles Sanders, right? Like, there's certain guys that I'll go around, I'm like, well, where are my guys, right? And I just can't possibly pick that team. It's the same with the Josh Allen team. Like, I'm just, I can't pick it. I like Chris Wilson probably has the safest team. Chris Wilson's team is the team that, like, it looks like if you just let the computer auto draft and it just, you know what I mean? Like Tyreek Hill, Nick Chubb, Najee, Hawk, Herbert, Dotson, Brandon
solid.
Cooks. It's so solid. Dude, that team is that. If I had to pin a 4th place medal on a team, oh no, sorry, I was looking at the team next to it. Yeah, his Jamar Chase Pollard. It's solid, but yeah, it's not moving the needle for me. Personally, I would pick your team or I'd pick Matt's team. I'm just looking for upside, like explosion. Because in this, how many teams get moved up to the next level? Is it just the winner?
It's just the winner. So it's
right. So this is like. Exactly. This isn't your hometown league. Like a lot of hometown leagues, it's like $200 and 3rd place makes some money. In this league, there's no money on it. And everybody that doesn't come in first has to play at this level again, just trying to make the next level. So you might as well go crazy. What team jumps out of you, Billy, besides yours?
I like Krautwerth's team, which is the 12 hole. He took Jonathan Taylor, Stephon Diggs, Christian Watson, Godwin, Deontay, Evans, Bateman. So this is a 3 wide receiver start league. So he's going to be able to start 3 of those guys, 1 in the flex. So he is going to have to sit 1. But I think overall, like what he did, he took his anchor running back. He went high upside, high wide receivers, and then he took a bunch of gambles at running back for that RB2. It's that punt to build that does really well in tournaments. Confined leagues like this, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out because he might have trouble filling that RB2 position on a week-to-week basis.
Right. And I like, and again, this is why linear rankings, I don't like them, is that when you go like hero RB like this, you have to remember, you want as much upside as possible, but you still need somebody to start week 1. And Rashad Penny does fit. I don't like drafting Rashad Penny, especially in full PPR. He's never had 10 receptions in a season ever. His quarterback threw the lowest percentage of passes to the running back last year. His quarterback vultures touchdowns. But once you get to that range of the draft, you need someone that you can start week 1, right? So Samaje Perine, right? We could start him. Rashad Penny. I would be like, if you push comes to shove, you could start him compared to some of these other guys. Like Kareem Hunt's not even signed. Zach Charbonnet, we don't know what he's going to be, right? So we look around like, you got to either go for upside or go for somebody you can actually start right now. Start Penny, and then he started taking, okay, I'm taking Kendre Miller. I'm taking a rookie. He took 3 rookies in a row. Kendre Miller, Tank Bigsby, Roshan Johnson. Hell yeah. Shoot for the moon. Go for it. Pierre Strong. James Robinson just got cut. Somebody's going to play along with Ramondre Stevenson. Could be Pierre Strong. Could be Ty Montgomery. But if it's Ty Montgomery, you can add him off waivers. Right. So I do like what he did there, man. It was smart in the execution, which I appreciate that more than anything because it shows that you actually know what you're doing.
What do you think of Jeff Ratcliffe's team, the Barkley, Waddle, Cooper, Judy team?
I mean, first of all, obviously most handsome guy at the draft. So, once you have to get beyond that part. Right. No, I like that team. I love Waddle. And I saw somebody in the chat say Amon-Ra St. Brown or Waddle. Amon-Ra in full PPR, yes, but in half PPR or standard, it's Waddle because Amon-Ra is still a 7-yard ADOT guy. Both of them were 7-yard ADOT as rookies. Amon-Ra stayed in that role, 6.9-yard ADOT last year. Waddle in the new offense with Mike McDaniel went up to 13 yards. So
wasn't he number 1 in the league actually?
Yeah, he was up there, baby. So I'm all for, again, I would take ARSB in full PPR like you did, but Waddle in half PPR, I actually straight up have ahead. But I love Amari Cooper. He almost set careers in all the stats last year: targets, receptions, yards, touchdowns. He was either tied or close. I think it was like 20 yards off yards. So, and he's going to get Deshaun Watson for a full year. I'm in on Amari. I'm in on Judy. Kyle Pitts, I'm obviously willing to take that stab. Kadarius Toney had the high yards per route run. So sprinkle some more playing time on there. He could be the guy. David Montgomery with touchdowns. I mean, this probably is the team I like second best. And I love Tua. So, but I mean, it's Jeff Ratcliffe. He knows what he's doing, right? Nico Collins. And then he goes, Nico Collins, Jonathan Mingo. Who's going to lead those team in targets, right? Who's going to lead the Texans in targets? Who's going to lead the Panthers in targets? Might not be those guys, but you're giving yourself a chance, right? Who do you think leads the Panthers in targets, Billy? Such a loaded question. Such a ridiculous question.
It is.
I come on your show and just ask you a completely loaded, impossible question.
I think honestly, it's disgustingly probably going to be Adam Thielen, but I think that that Chark has a chance to at least push for it. I don't think we're going to see Mingo or Terrace Marshall lead the team in targets, but so I'm probably going to just take the gross way out and say Adam Thielen. In terms of Houston, though, I think the correct answer might be Schultz.
Could be Schultz. I like your pick. I like you taking Mechie at the end of your draft.
It also could be Mechie. I like Mechie. You know,
give me the wild cards. Right.
People forget he's a round 2 pick last year.
Yeah. Now the thing, the other thing I like about the Thielen pick is, like, let's say I like to play this game all things even, and it leads me to picking tight end a lot because, like, okay, so I did it with Ingram last year. I'm like, okay, Christian Kirk's new to the team, so is Zay Jones, Marvin Jones is there, Evan Ingram. If everyone gets equal targets, then who's the best play? It's Evan Ingram because he has tight end eligibility, right? I look at the Panthers and I say, all things equal, who's the best option? Well, Adam Thielen is an absolute red zone monster, right? So if all the targets are equal, he has, I mean, historically he's been, right? Yeah. Like, so
new offense, new system though.
True. But like, if all targets are equal, I want to lean into the guy that maybe gives me that little extra something, the little extra touchdowns or whatever it ends up being, right? So I do that. I'm with you on the Thielen move there. Cole Kmet pick I don't like at all.
Okay. I think that's it for this draft. I think we've identified some of the picks I wanted to talk about. I like the teams that you mentioned. I like Deutsch's team. I liked Radcliffe's team. I think
Radcliffe's the best team, actually, now that I think of it. Your team's second best. Radcliffe's better. He's better at this than you.
That's it. I'm out of here. I'm leaving.
Yeah, I'll finish the show myself.
Well, let's talk a little bowling. So fantasy's out the window now, boys. So if you guys want to stick around, we'd love to have you. But we are talking about bowling. We went out. We were at the FSGA. We had the bowling matchup. It was me, you, Bender, Deutsch, right?
Yeah.
The four of us were facing off against TJ, right? It was
TJ Shore, Wyatt from JWB Fantasy, Chris Wilson, and I think they added Ed Williams, dude, right? Or did he jump on our team? Yeah.
I forget. I don't know. Yeah. I think Ed hopped on ours at the end because Deutsch disappeared.
Right. Yeah.
But so we're bowling. We were all bowling pretty consistently, pretty terrible. And then all of a sudden we had a hot streak. It was like, I think we had like 4 straight strikes down the board, our team did. And then it just took off. Deutsch had like 2 or 3 in a row.
Deutsch was an absolute animal, and his celebrations were all like, he was levitating. After I think he did turkey, and on his 3rd strike, he was actually levitating. Like, I thought he was just going to ascend into the rafters. Like, it was unbelievable. And I will tell you this, that our ability to come together was 100% fueled by you guys all being jerks. Like, I'll tell anyone listening right now, don't ever bowl with a bunch of fantasy analysts, because just picture your friends and how much you talk trash to each other. Like, not only were you guys talking trash to me, but when we were on the same team, you were actually talking more trash. And
I went and got you the little roller.
Dude, you got me a roller, and you're posting stuff on the internet, dude. Like, in live. So like, you're talking trash to my face, and then behind my back you're tweeting to thousands of people. Like, so I've never experienced that level of, like, me and my buddies, obviously, like, we razz each other, but I'm just like, dude, you turn around and post my score. I had like 1 gutter ball, you posted it to 9,000 people, dude. Like, that's what it's like, dude, talk about
said Coops all over the place, and yeah, including the gutter.
Yeah, like, seriously though, like, unbelievable, man. And we were on a team that game, dude, and I was actually rolling pretty well. So like, that don't ever, like, that is the most high stakes bowling ever, because you do one thing weird and it's on the internet immediately.
You know, sometimes you just need a little tough love there. I think that after that post, you had like 2 straight. I think you had a strike. I think you had 2 spares. So like, all you needed was that little nudge.
I had to clean my act up. And I was like, I went to the bathroom. I was like, making sure my hat was on straight. I was like, it's gonna be live streamed. Like, unbelievable, dude. The content, everything's content with you animals, dude.
That's right. That's everything. Okay. So last thing we'll talk about, we jumped out of the casino late that night. I think it was like 1:30 ish, 2 in the morning ish, and we were playing poker. A pretty big hand popped up, a pretty big pot, I should say. So prior to that pot, I called the guy out at the end of the table because he was playing really tight. playing kind of passive aggressively, wasn't making
really tight, dude. Okay, let me set the stage with this particular player. Like this, first of all, dude, this guy, like, so I tried to put a bunch of money down, and there was a limit to how much you could put down. So 100, yeah. So like you can only put, but this guy in front of him had a friggin' castle of the $5 chips, right? Like this guy had been there
like $2,000 almost.
100% had been there all day. And like I looked at his stack and I was like, well, if we're going to play with this guy, I got to put money on the table, right? But you can't even do that. So this guy was just being living there. He had probably been there 24 hours or whatever, you know what I mean? So like that was this fella. But go on, Billy.
Yeah, so he's sitting out with this mound of chips. He's only playing in hands. We know he only has a hand. And so I called him out on it. And so then his betting patterns start changing. And then he had a tell. And you could tell at this point now he was uncomfortable because he got called out on his playing style, which I love to do to people, by the way. It just puts them on edge when they're in the poker room and they start tilting. So nonetheless, we're in a hand. Pot gets raised, pre-raised pre-flop. I think it's just you and this guy head up, right?
Yeah.
And then
I made a mistake, right? Like, so so I had the top two pair, right? I had two pair, both top cards, no pair on the board. So both in my hand, dude. I think I had like a 10. I was playing like 9-10. I had 9-10 suited, which is why I was playing it, Billy, in case you're wondering.
I wonder where it was. I didn't even see it.
Yeah, so so it was like 9-10 on the board, and there was nothing. There was an ace up there, and then there was like a 3, but there was a flush draw, and it wasn't my suited cards. So I should have pushed them all in, but I just, I was drinking 107 proof Weller, and it was 2 in the morning, so I literally just reached over and grabbed whatever was closest, and I was like this many, and you, of course, being a excellent poker player, you're like, you should go all in. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I should go all in. So I did. Right. And then this guy, here's the thing about that. This is a $1 blind table where you can't put $100 down. If this were the World Series of Poker and the bracelet were on the table, then you call the chaperones over or whatever he did. But he immediately was like, guards! Like he was
ruling.
Yeah, he goes for ruling. He's like, so they come over, dude. And they come and they're like talking to us, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like, we're fantasy football analysts. I have $100 on the table because that's the most I could put on. I'm like, do you think we're cheating? You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, give them the money, and then they were just like, obviously the people that came over were like, it's not that big a deal, so just play it out, right?
They did give me a warning. They said I can't influence the table anymore. You were pot committed, so I got the verbal warning at the poker table.
Official. That's on your permanent record. That's on your permanent record, Billy.
All I did was lean over to the coop and say, "Hey, you're pot committed. You have to go all in here." Because the guy was like limping it. He was just calling. You could tell he was chasing, right?
I think the remaining chips I had were worth like $32. Like it's not that big a swing, dude. And this guy, yeah, he was clearly chasing the flush.
He was chasing. You could tell he was chasing. He got mad because he thought he could bully you out with 80 on the hand. Yeah. At that point, all I said is, Coop, you have to go all in. Called for a ruling. They called the floor over. They were telling me to be quiet. I can't talk anymore at the table. I ended up. So you bounced after that hand.
So I played one more hand. So here's what the next hand comes up, and I get my cards. I take a quick peek at them, and I thought I could pull the old I thought I could truly pull the sucker move because I was like pouting. Yeah. So I remember I just pushed all my chips on the blinds. Like he called blinds. I was big blind. A couple people called and I go, I'm all in again. I don't care. I'm out of here. Right. I was like, I'm out of here. Whatever, dude. And I thought my attitude would work and he would actually call. Dude, I had ace queen suited. I had ace queen hearts. I was really hoping that I would like my attitude of like, oh, whatever, I'm out of here. And he would call and I'd be like, got you. But that guy actually was pretty sharp. He caught on to what I was saying. But I did collected some blinds. I did get out of there. Part of me getting out, there was 2 reasons. 1, that guy was a dick. 2, they basically told you couldn't talk at the table. And the whole reason I was sitting there, it was like you, me, and it was like Krautwurst, right? Will and Adam. I'm like, I'm sitting here with my friends playing cards. Like, I don't care about this money. You know what I mean? So like, the moment they were like that it became a serious thing and you couldn't talk, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna leave. Also, Again, we're drinking 107 proof Weller. I was like, this guy needs to go to bed. So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't stick around that much longer. I think I played I played the blind around the table. Once it came back to me, and I was gonna be big blind again. I just left the table. I ended up doubling up for like a short hour I was there, so it wasn't horrible. But I think I could have made some real money there because the other two guys that were actually chip leaders were pretty obvious in their play style.
The guy on my right was giving money away.
He was hilarious.
Yeah. I will say
he won huge hands. He just kept winning huge hands though, is what it was.
Right.
And he would like lose $50-$40 every other hand, and then he'd win like a $500 hand.
He was the best, dude. That guy was trickle down economics for sure, bro. That guy was Ronald Reagan. Like, so, and here's so I won $400, but I left my Dulcich sunglasses at the bowling alley. So so I walked away even on the weekend.
That sucks.
I just bought them again. I just went online and bought the same pair. So like,
with your poker winnings.
with that guy. No, not my poker winnings. With that guy's money.
That's
with
right.
the what is it, the all-in police.
We're just going to call him Cleveland because we were in Cleveland.
Yeah, Cleveland. Tuesday, Cleveland, bro. Tuesday night at the Jack. He's taking $1 hands of poker. Crazy, seriously.
He was so ticked off. I came back later. It was like 2:33 in the morning, and I went to say bye to Adam because I had to catch a flight at like 7. And so I was like, man, I got to get like 2.5 hours of sleep before I hop on this plane. And so I go back to the room. I was over at the craps table after that. I go back to the room just to say bye to Adam. And the guy actually gets up and comes over and apologized to me.
He should apologize. He should have found me. What the hell? Dude, I mean, like, here's the thing, man. Like, the rigor, I've never actually seen that. I've never had anybody call, like, I've seen, I've seen the dealers do it on other games and stuff, being like, hey, boss, will you come over and take a... I've never had a player do it. So, like, just the rigmarole, the whole thing. I was literally, I was like, you can have the money. Like, we were in his head, is what it was.
Yeah. I called him out like 5 minutes early. He started changing his betting patterns. I told you to go all in. He was getting pissed.
Yeah, we were already calling him Hot Shot because he had so many. I think it was part of calling him Hot Shot. It's probably part of it. I will admit that. Okay, I will admit that. Like, 2 a.m, you and me, kind of a tough setting. Yeah, right.
No care in the world.
And he can't take his chips to another table because they'll make him sit down with 100. So now it makes sense. Yeah, we were actually ruining that guy's night pretty bad. So I will say that, dude. But I mean, it was a Tuesday. So I mean, come on now.
Oh man, if that's what I could do every year at the FSGA is ruin someone's Tuesday night at a poker table. That's my new mission.
I sign me up.
Well, Coop, you've been very generous with time. I appreciate you coming on. Why don't you tell the listeners where to find you, what you're working on, and give them all the deets?
Yeah, man. So I make it pretty simple for everybody. At Coop A Fiasco, COOPAFIASCO, and everything I do, I tweet it out. I retweet this out. If you said something good, I retweet it. It's not that often you do, but I will. So like, I try and collect everything together in this one spot. So all the articles I do, all the podcasts I do, you can see it there. That's the fastest way to find me. If you want my deep dives and stuff, go to Fantasy Alarm, search Andrew Cooper, and our draft guide is out now. It has all my rankings. And earlier I said I hate linear rankings. My linear rankings are in there, but I have other rankings called dynamic rankings where I attempt to break down like the yin and yang tight end, Billy, like we know about. But I break guys down into like running backs. It's upside. It's, third down backs versus early down backs. I handcuff plus, break it all down. So I do my best to let people know what I'm thinking and also how I'm thinking. So get that draft guide, the Fantasy Alarm draft guide. And hey, check me out in the Player Profiler draft guide. I'm in there this year too, doing a little DK Metcalf talk.
Amen to that shit.
Hey.
Amen to that shit. Well, thanks for joining the podcast. Thanks for your cameo inside of the draft kit. That is a huge effort from all the analysts who participate, and hats off to Theo for just grinding that thing out for the last couple months and getting
Theo's a G, dude. He's a G.
Getting out 300 player analysis on that draft kit. It is an awesome tool. It has my rankings in there. The projections are in there as well. And you can utilize it. We're going to have 1-page cheat sheets. Those are coming out soon. They're not out yet, but 1-page cheat sheets. It'll be for FFPC, for Underdog. It'll also be for your home league for PPR. You could also turn on the Superflex and Titan Premium filter if you want, and it'll automatically create those in the cheat sheets. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Andrew, thanks for your time. Appreciate you coming on. Love your tight end insight and had fun with you at FSGA in Cleveland. Until next time, folks, have a good one.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.